It's not uncommon for people to be judged purely on their attire alone. Arrive to a job interview in a wife beater and sweatpants, and you're probably not going to make the best first impression on a potential employer. It's as the old adage goes, clothing makes the man. But can the same be said about women? When I treat myself to a clip of Tracy Jordan's Batgirl, I've often wondered why she opts for the dated 60s version of the heroine's uniform. I mean, of the more grounded iterations that have emerged throughout the years, or an original concept she could have produced, had she exercised some creative license, she opted for the least inspired interpretation. Don't get me wrong, I like the Yvonne Craig costume, but we're not in the 1960s anymore, and the character of Batgirl has since evolved beyond that of a hapless damsel in distress. In fact, when I think of the character, I think of a hard-nosed, courageous crime fighter with admirable detective skills, useful gadgets, and intimidating combat skill sets. And while I understand she coexists with the likes of Supergirl and Wonder Woman, that doesn't diminish the fact that Batgirl still possesses traits and characteristics that make her a formidable adversary and a dependable ally. Now here's where the perspective shifts. When Tracy Jordan's Batgirl appears on screen, I see no reason to apply even a single adjective like the ones used to describe the proper character of Batgirl. The sparkly purple jumpsuit, while flashy and sleek, is far from practical given the presupposed nature of the universe in which she exists. The flimsy yellow belt and subsequent fake pouches act as mere fashionable accessories rather than purposeful equipment. And the high-heeled boots are just so impractical that it's not even worth detailing why. In short, judging on attire alone, none of the adjectives I just used to describe the character of Batgirl come remotely close to being applied to this iteration. Which brings us back to the question, given what we know, why would Tracy Jordan opt for this look over something more grounded and intimidating? The answer just might lie in self-awareness and conviction. I'd like to imagine that on some level of awareness, there's an air of conviction that sparks an actor when they're expected to embody a character. When Sean Connery puts on a tuxedo and holsters his Walter PPK, or when James Morrison slips on that optic visor, there has to be some semblance of conviction that sparks them to say, yes, I am James Bond of British intelligence, or yes, I am Cyclops, leader of the X-Men. That being said, I imagine Tracy Jordan must also, as she's zipping up her jumpsuit, adjusting her fake pouches, and reaching for that rubber batarang, I'd expect her to also say to herself with some level of conviction that she is Batgirl. The question here is, to what degree is that conviction? Tracy Jordan's Batgirl never really hits those marks of being an intimidating world-class detective or having a high fighting IQ. On the contrary, she's slow, susceptible, and comically exaggerative when it comes to expressing frustration. Her campy uniform may very well be a physical manifestation of those ineptitudes. As routinely as she gets snagged by her rogues gallery of villains, so too can her uniform be snagged and torn apart with minimal effort. Her cowl is about as inept at stopping a bullet as she is susceptible to tearful fits of laughter when a pair of hands ascend on her belly. These ineptitudes, which manifest on screen, may just be a direct reflection of Tracy's self-awareness. And maybe, just maybe, therein lies the answer. Standing at a pudgy 5'2", the soft-bodied Tracy Jordan isn't exactly driving fear into the hearts of men. Similar to CBS's new iteration of The Equalizer with Queen Latifah, it's just hard to get behind the idea that a woman of such physique could pose any real threat to men and women twice her size and muscle mass. So why try? To be this self-aware and to turn these ineptitudes into something that works is applaudable. Then of course there's the overall scale of the project. Considering these adventures are small-scale projects, a more refined and sophisticated version of the character doesn't exactly lend itself well. Think of a pair of latex gloves, intended for one use before disposal. A more grounded and fleshed-out Batgirl might feel out of place considering the circumstances. So, Tracy Jordan takes the high road, leaving one avenue still to be explored. If you've been around this channel long enough, you'll know that the nature of her content is rooted in the adult film industry. So it's reasonable to theorize that the character of Batgirl is little more than a marketing ploy, cheaply adapted to influence fans of the genre to prescribe to her offerings. And while I hope this theory is wrong, it cannot be dismissed as a possibility. So, to summarize, why the campy purple suit? Well, if I had to theorize, 1. The suit is reflective of her ineptitudes. Much like Tracy Jordan being of small physique and her playing a blundering version of Barbara, the campy outfit is likewise non-imposing nor sophisticated, a perfect match. 2. The suit is reflective of her self-awareness. As stated in an earlier point, Tracy Jordan doesn't exactly have the idealistic female physique one might expect that would be required of an actress portraying a beloved comic book hero. The campy outfit likely makes for the most feasible match in terms of her physical attributes. 3. She's dressed for the occasion. At best, Tracy Jordan's Batgirl is a small-scale production, and due to the scale, a more sophisticated ensemble would just seem out of place and highly unnecessary. You wouldn't wear a hazmat suit just to throw out the kitchen trash, would you? Which brings me to my last point, and personally the more disappointing if proven to be true. The character of Batgirl is simply a ploy adopted by Tracy Jordan to influence fans of the genre to prescribe to her offerings. To imply this is to imply that it never really was about doing justice to the character. It was simply about producing the most uninspired iteration of the character with the widest margin for error, so that a claim could be staked that yes, in fact, she does embody the beloved heroine in her content, with the only regard being a personal vested interest, regardless of the source material. I certainly hope I'm wrong about that last one, but when I hear lines like,
"My bat senses are tingling something fierce,"
it certainly makes me wonder. Whatever the reason, I'd like to make it clear, this is by no means a scathing critique. I absolutely adore Tracy's efforts. The segment is simply a big theoretical examination into a ponderance that's been taking up residence in my head for some time. Clearly, the answers are merely theories based on this ponderance, and nothing more. And I hope to have more of these to add in the future, if we're still here. Thanks for listening.